A shrill cat cry woke me up from my dream. It was still pitch black outside the window. I looked at my phone and it showed 5 a.m. The nightmare and the sudden awakening made me exhausted. I sat on the bed for a long time before I realized that I was covered in cold sweat. I couldn't sleep. Now as soon as I closed my eyes, I could think of the thick black smoke and the flames climbing along my skin. Thank you just now. I touched the black cat nestling at the head of the bed, got up and took a bath with a towel. I had already washed once before going to bed, but the cold sweat from the nightmare made me feel uncomfortable, so I simply rinsed a little. In the hot bathroom, I felt the temperature of the water hitting my skin, and then I felt like I was alive. The burning feeling in the dream was too strong. Until now, the thick black smoke still remains in my mind and lingers. I turned on the computer to record the dream I had just had. The cat was still lying motionless on the bed, as if the meow was not made by him. The sun was rising, and the room was filled with a hint of warmth from the sunlight. I picked up the cat and took a few puffs. It was always lazy. I touched him and hugged him, but he just glanced at me slightly, with his green eyes full of pride. Xiaohei, Mommy made delicious food for you today. Xiaohei is a cat I picked up, or he took the initiative to come to my house. I adopted him because I felt that we were destined to be together. The water in the bathroom was still dripping, which made me upset. The faucet seemed to be broken and could not be tightened. I tried several times, but finally gave up. When I closed the bathroom door, the temperature in the bathroom instantly rose, and the dripping water gradually slowed down and fell on the ground, turning into wisps of black smoke. It rose and rotated along the wall. Recently, I always have some strange dreams, and I can't remember the things in the dream clearly when I wake up. I only remember the black smoke, the fire, and the strong feeling of suffocation. Every night, I would wake up from my dream and get a minor illness. It was a minor illness, but it took more than half a month to recover. I am not in good health, but I have never stayed in bed for more than half a month because of an ordinary minor illness. And the inexplicable dream, I suspect that there is something wrong with the new house. I fell ill with nightmares just a few days after moving here. I had no appetite and no strength to get out of bed every day, so I haven't looked at the house carefully. I rented the house from a woman wearing a mask. It was very cheap. The woman was honest and told me that the house had been burned before. Even if no one died, no one dared to buy it after it was renovated. Most houses that have suffered disasters, diseases, and deaths are not bought by anyone. But I don't quite understand, do people nowadays avoid fire so much? Looking at the burn marks on the woman's face that were not completely covered by the mask, I finally rented the house at a price half of the market price. The house was beautifully decorated, without any trace of the fire. The price, location, and decoration can all be said to have hit my heart, except for this illness. My grandfather said that I had too much yin energy since I was a child. Men are yang and women are yin, and girls have heavy yin energy. I was born at the wrong time, when the ghost messenger was getting married. It is said that when I was a child, because of my heavy yin energy, a living person was almost taken away by the ghost messenger as a dead person. I never took these words to heart. I don't believe in any ghosts and monsters. I always felt that what my family said was just a lie made up to scare me, because they were afraid that I would be abducted by human traffickers. Although I was weak since I was a child, I lived without disasters and illnesses for so many years. Until I had a big fight with my parents and moved to this city. The clock in the living room ticked, and I stood at the door of the bedroom in my pajamas. There is a black shape on the wall at the door, which looks very strange. I touched it with my hand, and it didn't look like it was stained with ink or something, but more like a mark seeping from the wall. Cheap things are really bad. I muttered and prepared to find something to cover it. Although the mark doesn't affect anything, it can always be seen back and forth, which makes people upset. This position was soon occupied by a SpongeBob sticker with a silly smile. I didn't think much about it. The rented house will have some unsatisfactory places more or less, and a little black mark is not a big deal. Not long after I sat down, there was a sound at the door of the bedroom. I closed the computer and went out to check the situation. I don't know where a black cat came from and knocked off the SpongeBob sticker I just put on. The cat didn't know how to run away after making a mistake, and just stood at the door of my bedroom. It should be a wild cat. I came to this conclusion after asking in the community group, to no avail. The cat is very beautiful, without any stray hair on its body. The eyes are like emeralds, and it doesn't look like a stray cat at all. I touched the cat and made up my mind to adopt it. Before I went to primary school, I lived with my grandfather. I don't remember his other words very clearly, the only thing that impressed me was that everything has a soul. When I turned around and prepared to go back to the bedroom with the cat in my arms, I suddenly realized why the clock in the living room didn't move. I turned around suddenly, and the ticking sound rang in front of me. The clock was still ticking diligently. Was it an illusion? I ordered the things needed for raising cats to be delivered in the same city, and they arrived very quickly. But what surprised me was that the cat didn't eat the cat food and cat strips I bought specifically. I tried to make some chicken breasts myself, and he just took a look. I looked at the cat's stomach worriedly. Maybe he was not hungry now. Soon I had no time to take care of the cat. These few nights meant torture and terror to me. No matter how much coffee I drank, I would fall asleep around 1 o'clock and repeat those nightmares. A lot of smoke rushed into my mouth, and the fire snake licked my skin. Thick black smoke filled everything I saw. I slumped on the ground, my hands and feet were so weak that I had no strength left. I could only let it go. I was burned by the flames, and the temperature of the wall I was close to slowly rose. Help, help, calling for help was a luxury for me at this moment, and I couldn't stop coughing as soon as I opened my mouth. The fire was getting bigger and bigger, and I felt that the whole world was intertwined with black and red. Like being trapped in a steamer, the fire and black smoke entangled me endlessly, and there was nowhere to escape. My consciousness gradually dissipated, and my eyes were blurred, leaving only darkness. In the sound of the burning flames, I heard a tiny heartbeat. It was different from me, but so similar. My stomach bulged with my heartbeat, getting bigger and bigger, like a balloon that was about to burst. A pair of bloody hands broke out of my stomach and rushed straight to my face. Another late night, the sharp alarm woke me up. I lay on the side of the bed and coughed violently, as if my lungs were stuffed with countless cotton balls. The cat passed by my bed and looked at me with a slightly cold look. At that time I was panting greedily, as if I wanted to suck the air around me dry. Familiar flames, familiar black smoke, the stinging feeling of being burned by fire, and the hand coming out of my stomach. I had this dream again, and my intuition told me that this was not a good sign, so I decided to find a master to take a look. Many people in our village believe in ghosts and gods, especially the older generation. Therefore, there are also several masters who wander around the village all year round and are very respected. I didn't believe in these things before, and I didn't pay attention to the master's contact information. I had to contact my childhood friend and asked him to help find a reliable master. Didn't you never believe in this before? Why, have you changed your personality after going out for a while? I can't explain it clearly for the time being. Anyway, you can help me find it. I always feel that my surroundings are not clean recently. Okay, wait for good news. However, your grandfather is a master, very famous. Several villages respect him. Why do you go far away? I had a quarrel with my parents, you know that. Otherwise, how could I run away and live here? Don't tell them about this in advance. Okay, got it. My childhood friend was very fast, and the master came to the door soon. He was an old man with a long beard, wearing a Taoist robe, and looked quite intimidating. I don't know if he has real skills. When I told him about the symptoms, he frowned. The peachwood sword provoked the fire, and I instantly seemed to be in the fire again. In front of me was black smoke everywhere, the wall behind me was red, and my belly was quietly bulging in the dance of flames. Just as the ghost hand rushed straight to my face, the peachwood sword with fire dispersed the surrounding smoke. Sharp cries sounded around me, and the originally calm black fog around me was stimulated to surge. The ghost hand visibly accelerated its speed, and I even smelled the smell of burning on his body, but it was blocked by the peachwood sword one by one. I don't know how long it took, but the smoke gradually dissipated, revealing a little light. I came back to my senses and found myself sitting in the living room. Master, did this work? The scene just now made me feel that this Taoist priest had some real skills, so I became respectful. From not believing in ghosts to thinking there were dirty things and then asking the master for help, it took only 3 or 2 days. Growing up, my mom and dad told me so many things about ghosts, but I just didn't believe them. I was so stubborn that I had to experience it myself before I was willing to believe it a little bit. Ghost babies are very resentful, and they usually parasitize women who have lost their children. How could they entangle a little girl like you? It's really strange. The master sighed a few words, but didn't go into the details. I suddenly remembered the tiny heartbeat that gradually became clear in the firelight, which was different from mine, but so similar. After saying goodbye to the master, I felt a lot more relaxed. The solution to the nightmare incident that had troubled me for a few days gave me a little peace of mind. Therefore, I didn't see the master staring at Xiao He with a thoughtful look on his face. Days passed, and it seemed that everything was developing in a good direction. Except that I seemed to have a stomachache during this period, and I felt nauseous and wanted to vomit when I saw greasy things. I have always had a poor appetite, so I didn't take this matter to heart. The cat is as lazy as ever, lying on the sofa all day and rarely moving. Only when I put stickers on it, it will be a little interested. At first, I thought he was interested in the stickers, so I took them down and teased him several times before I was sure that he was interested in the black mark on the wall. As long as I cover it with something, he will definitely come to knock it off. The mark is really annoying, and I even feel a little dizzy after looking at it for a long time. But the cat always goes against me on this, and over time I don't care about the black mark anymore. The cat's appetite is as bad as mine. I feel sick every day and can't eat anything. The cat only eats a little every day. He is only willing to eat 1 or 2 bites of the chicken breast I made and the cat food I bought. I really can't do anything about him. But seeing that he didn't enjoy it at all, I can only attribute it to the fact that he is a wild cat and will find food for himself. I have lived with the cat for more than a month, and he has no intention of being tamed by me. Several times I saw him finish my meal at home and then go to the flower bed outside the community to vomit. I couldn't help but feel sad, but I couldn't take care of myself at this time. The sound insulation in the community is not very good, and I can always hear the baby crying in the middle of the night. It's sharp and piercing, and it makes me unable to sleep. Occasionally, I will be woken up by the heat when I fall asleep, and my hair will be wet with sweat and become strands after waking up. I am a person who is afraid of heat, so the air conditioner temperature is also turned very low. After being woken up by the heat in the middle of the night, it will be followed by a cool feeling. The alternation of hot and cold makes me increasingly depressed. Sometimes I start to be dazed for no reason while doing things, and I forget what I am doing when I come to my senses. What's even more strange is that I eat less and less, but the fat on my belly is gradually increasing. I suspect that it is because of my lack of energy that I have endocrine disorders. I went to the city hospital for a checkup and wanted to get some sleeping pills to help me sleep, but I didn't expect. Congratulations. However, it is recommended that your husband should accompany you for a comprehensive pregnancy checkup. When I got the test report, I stared at the data on it blankly. The words blurred in front of my eyes and turned into a few simple black blocks. The sound of wind filled my ears, and the doctor's words turned around in my mind. Why am I pregnant? I don't even have a boyfriend. Is it a ghost again? The baby crying in the middle of the night suddenly came into my mind. I suddenly remembered the blazing fire and the hand that pierced my belly. Was the ghost really solved by the master, or is it quietly parasitic in my belly, waiting to be born? I can no longer care about the conflict with my family. Face is always not as important as life. After returning from the hospital, I quickly packed my luggage and embarked on a journey back to my hometown. This house is too weird. It is definitely not like no one has died. The moment I pulled the suitcase out of the door, the clock on the wall behind me stopped turning. It was opposite to the black marks on the opposite wall, as if laughing at my stupidity. The bus was shaking on the mountain road. The hot sun in July and August made the bus like a moving steamer. I felt like I was going to be thrown out. Strangely, I didn't feel nauseous at this time. The cat was curled up on my legs, calling out from time to time. It wasn't until I got off the bus that the foul air in my chest was finally vomited out. Grandpa lives in a small village far away from the county town. We always wanted to take him to the city, but he never wanted to. Hey, Xiaoying is back? Oh my, you have grown into a big girl after not seeing you for a few years. You are so beautiful. As soon as I stepped into the village, I met Grandma Wang next door. Are you back to see your grandpa? Old Xia should be at home at this time. Go back quickly. Look how hot the child is. Grandma Wang looked at the sun in the sky and told me. I thanked her and walked towards the old house. Xiao He seemed to be very shy. As soon as Grandma Wang spoke, he shrank into my arms and refused to come out. This child, why is there a ball of black air behind him? Passing through the layers of woods, the hut appeared in the mottled forest. Grandpa was lying on the rocking chair in the courtyard to enjoy the cool. Grandpa, the fears of these days were finally released at this moment. There were more wrinkles on Grandpa's face than before, and his hair was gray, and there was no trace of black hair at all. He opened his eyes and stood up from the recliner. The moment he saw me, the smile on his face instantly turned serious. How did you get so much ghost energy? It takes a lot of effort to form the summoning array. Grandpa tied a red line on me and locked me in the house. He said that too much yang energy was sucked away by ghosts from my body, and my soul was unstable. He had to use the summoning array to get the yang energy back. When he said this, his eyes were full of regret. I almost lost my life to ghosts in just a few months away from home. I think it's a bit ridiculous. The cat and I were locked in the room together, and my grandfather thought that something was wrong with Xiao He. But the black cat recognized its master and was good at communicating with spirits, so he was placed in the same room with me, hoping to help me to consolidate the spirit. After wrapping the red thread, I could no longer hear the baby crying. But the fire was still spreading in the dream, the flames licked my skin, the air smelled of burnt hair, and black smoke was everywhere. Tears were smoked out uncontrollably by the thick smoke, and the fire snake climbed up from my calves inch by inch. It is said that most people in fires are choked to death by thick smoke, but I really felt the feeling of being burned by the fire. This fire must not be an accident. Being locked in the room and unable to go out, I was bored and lay by the window every day, watching my grandfather prepare the spirit summoning array. The rooster was pinched by the neck and placed on the chopping board, with a talisman paper underneath. My grandfather said this was the key to summoning spirits. Roosters crow when the sun rises, and they are animals with strong yang energy. Kill it before it crows, and transfer all the yang energy in its body to its blood and onto the floating paper. The ceremony was set at noon when the sun was at its most poisonous. The red thread wrapped around my body was reduced to a talisman paper drawn with chicken blood on my wrist, which was placed in a circle around me. The confusion and drowsiness of these days seemed to be cured all at once. I felt countless warm lights flowing into my body from all directions. Meow, a sharp cat cry interrupted the transmission of warm light. It was Xiao He. Since I raised Xiao He, I have only heard him cry so sharply twice. One time was when I first dreamed of fire, and the other time was now. He is always quiet on weekdays, so these two calls are particularly impressive to me. The black cat is psychic. Why did he interrupt my soul solidification? The warmth dissipated, and the coldness came out from my bones, and my limbs were stiff like rusted gears. If I was absorbing yang qi just now, then now I can clearly feel that the yang qi in my body is scattering. My body is like a holy pocket that can't stop the wind from blowing in. When a person is cold, his brain can't work. The soul-catching lock was put on my neck and I was led for a long time before I reacted. The surroundings were barren, with no trees, no flowers, no leaves, and no grass. It was a vast expanse of white, and I couldn't see the way forward or the end. The other end of the soul-catching lock was held in the hand of a headless man. Blood couldn't stop flowing from his neck, flowing all the way, becoming the only bright color on this road. This place looks like a mass grave, but it's worse than a mass grave. Countless babies gathered here, some with bruises all over their bodies, and some with placentas. Others only had half of their bodies, and the remaining half was bleeding. Without any warning, I was thrown here. Have you ever heard the sound of nails scratching on a blackboard? I was surrounded by such sounds at this moment. It was the sound of countless babies chewing my bones. The ghost babies had long fangs, and every bite was painful. I was crawling all over with these ghost babies, wrinkled and small, huddled on me, and gnawing at me. More ghost babies drilled directly into my body, and the blood from the bones slowly crawled out. The pain magnified every second infinitely, and I felt as if several centuries had passed. The ghost babies that had eaten my flesh and blood turned into stars and drilled into my stomach to become a part of my body. I became a hotbed for the ghost babies, and the intense pain blurred my vision. My face was wet and I couldn't tell whether it was tears or sweat. Most of my face had been eaten. The only intact part of my body was my stomach. The ghost babies were eager to be born from there, so they naturally avoided it carefully. My body turned into a pile of rotten meat, and the blood was mixed with bone residue. In a pure white wilderness, a pair of unfocused eyes captured a patch of black. It was a ghost baby with a black body, a circle smaller than the other ghost babies. It curled up tightly, with only its sharp teeth, greedily biting my arm. He seemed to be weaker than the other ghost babies, and even bit much slower, so I could catch him. The flesh and blood of my right arm had been bitten to almost nothing, but fortunately my hand was still intact. I watched him quietly, biting all the way from my right arm to my right hand. As he bit my palm slowly, I grabbed him. I met the ghost because of that house, and this ghost baby was all black. At first glance, it looked like it came out of a fire. The ghost baby struggled violently in my hand, screaming and crying while tumbling. The baby spirit in the stomach seemed to have reached a consensus, tumbling with the ghost baby in my hand. During the struggle, the pain was twice or even more than before. The baby spirit in the stomach kept colliding, as if it was about to be born. I used all my strength to hold the ghost baby tightly in my hand. I don't know where the courage came from. I endured the pain and picked up the bones on the ground that were not completely eaten by the baby spirit. A sharp white thorn was gnawed out at one end of the bone. Hatred surged in my heart. I pierced the bone through the palm of my right hand and stabbed it into the body of the ghost baby. The blood remaining on the bone was intertwined with the black body of the ghost baby. The ghost energy spread in my right hand, and the charred ghost baby gradually turned into a dead black cat. A red line suddenly appeared on my index finger, pulling me forward, and the sun sprinkled on me again. When I opened my eyes again, I felt as if I was in another world. A piece of talisman paper drawn with chicken blood appeared in front of me. Not far away, my grandfather frowned tightly. I didn't care to think too much. I pulled down a handful of talisman paper and rushed towards Xiaohei. The black cat was lying lazily under the eaves, looking like he was asleep. Until I ran to his side, he didn't notice it at all, lying on the ground motionless. The moment the talisman paper was attached to the black cat, the cat was awakened instantly. With a sharp scream, countless black air ran out of his body. He struggled hard to get rid of the talismans, but it was in vain. Slowly, the strength of his struggle weakened. The curled-up body gradually turned into a charred baby. It was indeed his doing. Ghost. Grandpa noticed this scene and walked forward to check. The talisman paper flew up and surrounded the baby as he walked. This little ghost even fooled me. Grandpa, what's going on? I barely stood firm against the wall, and my right hand pierced by the bone spur couldn't stop shaking. Everyone has karma and blessings, but the babies who have just been born don't have it. They come to this world naked, and all karma must be taken from their parents. Once they don't form their own karma, they will die early and cannot enter reincarnation and reincarnate as adults again. This is his case. The baby was surrounded by the talisman paper and was motionless, as if he was suppressed. He was smart enough to find the body of a dead cat and wanted to return to the world through the belly of a living person. So what should I do now? Grandpa waved his hand and motioned me to go into the house. The messy red lines were piled on the bed, and I hadn't had time to clean them up. If you want to get rid of him completely, you need to go to the illusion before his death and kill him with your own hands. Let him know that he is completely dead and can't return to the world again. Only when he stops thinking about it can his soul fly away. After a few days, I returned to this house with the talisman paper my grandfather gave me. The house was the place where the fire occurred, and the talisman paper here will automatically take me into the illusion. Late at night, the fire was lit in the bedroom. A woman stood expressionlessly in front of the flames, and the child was thrown on the bed. No matter how loudly he cried, he couldn't get a look from the woman. The lighter was tightly held in the woman's hand, and the broken family portraits were scattered on the floor beside the bed. The fire was getting bigger and bigger, and someone downstairs could be heard shouting that there was a fire. The woman seemed to have just come to her senses at this time, and she threw down her lighter in a panic and tried to run out. The thick smoke blocked the way out, and she heard the crying of a child in the raging fire. She looked back at the child on the bed for the last time, and then rushed out in a panic. There was fire everywhere, and black smoke was circling around people, and the road in front of them was completely invisible. When my spirit arrived, the child had stopped crying. His breath was very weak. I glanced at the woman who ran away and confirmed that she was the woman who rented the house to me. Then I picked up the broken glass on the ground. Facing an adult, the baby had no power to fight back. Especially a dying baby, even if he was now a ghost baby. But when I stabbed the glass into his neck, he just weakly bared his fangs at me. The woman was quickly taken away by the firefighters who rushed to the rescue. The baby had long lost his breath in the room where the fire started. When the flames dissipated around, there seemed to be a stinging feeling of glass flowing down on my palm. I sat on the sofa in the living room in a daze. Suddenly I found that a black mark on the opposite wall disappeared. It turned out to be related to him. No wonder he always knocked off the stickers. Even if the ghost baby disappeared, I couldn't live in this house anymore. I contacted the landlord, the woman with burn marks on her face, overnight. In the illusion, it was obvious that she had set the fire. Why she set the fire had nothing to do with me, and what her relationship with the ghost baby was had nothing to do with me. I only knew that her concealment had caused me to suffer this catastrophe. I couldn't wait to quit the lease, and I wanted to stay away from this house. This was not in line with the agreement. We had agreed to stay for 3 months. If you suddenly quit the lease like this, I couldn't do business. You know what's in the house best. If you don't quit the lease, I'll have to make a good announcement. How did the fire start a few months ago? There was no movement from her for a long time, and in the end she didn't answer my question, but only returned the remaining rent to me. A long time later, I accidentally heard her story from someone else. It was said that she had a falling out with her family because of a man, and when she got pregnant, she found out that the man already had a family. After the child was born, the man gave her some money and never came again. A cheerful girl was suddenly gone. At this time, her family was also in a fire, which burned her son to death, and her face was also disfigured. Talking about this, several ants under the tree sighed, pitiful. Perhaps, now only me and that woman know who set the fire. Maybe she felt that she didn't want to live anymore and wanted to burn herself and the child to death, but she backed off at the last moment. Or maybe she just didn't want the child. No one can predict what's going on in the world. It's pitiful that she was deceived, but arson is even more harmful to others and herself. I don't know if the last look back at the ghost baby contained regret. After the ghost baby's matter was settled, my grandfather kept me in my hometown and studied the art of medicine for several years. According to my grandfather, if I don't know how to avoid ghosts and catch ghosts, I will be eaten by ghosts sooner or later, and there will be no residue left. Dealing with ghosts is really exciting. At least, the ghosts that can be left in the world are mostly resentful, and naturally, they will not die normally. After seeing those bloody scenes, I feel that I am much braver than before. Sakura, Sakura. It's time to get up. Today's homework is not finished yet. Grandpa called me from the window again. I resigned myself to my fate and wrapped the red thread around my wrist. I sighed and walked out of the house. Here I come, Grandpa. The sun was shining outside, and the leaves rustled in the wind. Maybe I will become a great master like Grandpa in the future. The end.